So as I just mentioned, I've removed the doors and flaps from the front frame, and I've also removed them from the back frame. So that's the panel there that was in its frame. So this will make it much easier to put together. All right, just one further inventory check, and that is on the bag of nuts and bolts and various things. So first up, we should have 4 anchor bolts, 3 pins, 2 nuts, 1 large, 1 small for the locking mechanism and a locking arm, 17 self-tapping screws, and 4 screws, 2 long and 2 short, with self-locking nuts and washers for them, and that should cover all of our small pieces of inventory. Okay, so let's get to assembling the box. You'll see the 2 side pieces, 2 side panels, and you'll see about 3/4 of the way up on the inside they've got a notch with a hole in them. So your panels, as you assemble, should look like mine on the floor. These are the opposite side panels, and in the middle I've placed the back frame. So we're going to assemble the back frame inside the grooves of the panels. Right, so I have put one panel up, and inside it I have inserted the frame. So there's no screwing at this stage. You'll see that it should match exactly to the bottom of the panel, and it should insert into that gap on the frame and panel itself. So that's one side. We'll do the other side now. So there is the other side sliding into place. Again, haven't screwed anything as yet. It just sits in there nicely, and we can move to the next step, which is to get the back top panel. And you'll see what I'm doing here, and I can actually do it by one hand. We slide that in underneath the lip of this side panel on both sides, and then what we'll start to see is that there are little holes pre-drilled, in fact 6 of them, 2 on the base, 2 on either side. And what we need to do here is to drill our self-tapping screws into each of these holes to secure both the sides and that frame to the framework. Okay, so now you can see that I've screwed 1 screw into the side, a couple more down at the back there on either side, and if you can see, 1 here as well. Okay, so your box should look like this at this point, and what we're now going to do is we're going to fit the front frame, and to do that I recommend that you turn the box over onto its side, something like this. Okay, so I've turned it over onto the side, and I've inserted the frame just to hold it up for the moment. What you'll see is I haven't yet put the frame into its locked holes. So I'll just do that now, and the same for the top. Right, so that's all sitting there. It's still loose, and again, we don't screw the frame at this point. We're going to now add the base, which will start to secure everything together. Okay, so here we have the base of the box, and you'll notice that on each side there is a clip, and there's a clip on this side as well. And then if we look at our base, we'll notice little notches on each side, 2 notches that line up with those clips. So it's very important that they're lined up, And the base itself is simply going to go on the inside of this. Now you'll notice on mine, I haven't got my frame flush with the outside. So you need to do that, otherwise it's not going to fit. So it is going to be a tight fit, and just take it slowly so that you can get these notches into place, and they will click into place. Now they're not easy to take out again, so just be careful as you align this so that everything remains flush on the outsides to give you enough space to put the base in place. Right, so just to demonstrate what I was talking about is I've put the base into this about halfway. I haven't pushed it all the way in as yet, so you can sort of see that there's a couple of half a centimetre or so sticking out, and that's just to demonstrate how this clicks in. So if I move it in place, you'll hear a little click, and that is the notches, as I identified earlier, clicking into these clips on the side. So the first part of the base is now secure. We'll add some extra security with some self-topping screws, and then it'll be done. Okay, so I've tipped it back on its back side. You'll notice that the top frame just hangs out a little bit. That's okay at this point. We'll secure that later. But as we look down here, you can see some pre-drilled holes on either side, and there's actually two on the inside at the top as well. And we just need to insert our self-tappers into that to finish off the base. Okay, so I flipped it over now, and I have put 2 screws in top and bottom of the base, so that's now very secure onto the box. Right, so with the base now secured, I'm standing up the box so we can see it looks something like this. No flaps or doors are on there as yet. We'll get to that shortly. But what you will notice is it doesn't have a top. So you grab the piece that looks like this, has 4 holes in one side, 2 at the back, and 4 holes in the other side, and nothing at the front. So that's important to know, that the back and the front of this piece are different. And the back will match up to the holes that you see, and the front will not need holes because underneath that will sit the letter flap. So what we do here is we carefully place this into position. Now this is a tight fit, and will probably require 2 hands, but you can fit the top and then gently bang it onto the corners for a tight fit. It's not the final secure top. We'll put some screws in it to finish it, but to align it, we first just fit it to the corners, and then gently tap it into place. So I'm going to need an extra hand to do that. I will show you the finished product in a sec. Okay, so what I wanted to point out here is each of the corners have a little overlapping piece, and I've just gently popped that into place on each side. And looks like that is in place. Just be gentle with it still, because it could pop off, and you might have to repeat this process just to keep it on until you've got a couple of screws in place. But that's the top of the box. We'll get some screws in it. Right, to put the screws in, I've laid the box down, and you'll see that I've got a screw here. There's actually one at the top, another one on the opposite side, and one down there. Now also there are 2 screws from the panel into the top, so 1 and 2. So total 6 screws for this. Now you might notice that the frame is still loose, and we will fix that in a very short time. The key to the frame is making sure that this hole is aligned with this hole. So the inner hole of the frame to the panel, and it's the same on the other side. So what's going to happen is the letter flap is going to put its spring pin hinge through these holes, and that holds the framework together on the front. Okay, right, so now we're at the stage of deciding, if we haven't already, where we want to put our access door. And the access door is pretty clearly shown by a little hole in the front, one spring hinge which will be at the top, and that's the door. On the other side here we've got a panel which actually has 2 spring hinges at the top. So this panel is used to be the opposite to the door. So if we wanted our door on the front, this being the front with the flap hole at the top and the letter flap there as well, we would insert the door here. If we want the door to be at the back, then we'll insert the door at the back. Now in this situation we're actually going to make it a back door model, and I'll show you how that's done. Right, so I'm at the back of the box. I've got my back frame already assembled and panel on top, and I want to make this a back door access mailbox, possibly one I'm going to put on my front fence. So the first thing to do is to grab this one of these pins. You should have 3 of them. So one is all that's required at this point, and to insert that in the hole just like that. The second thing to do is to carefully align the door There we go, I did it with one hand. And then what we need to do is click it into place. So just move that spring down underneath. Sorry about that. So again, we just move the spring down. And we're not easy to do with one hand. And once that spring clicks into place, or that hinge clicks into the upper hole there, essentially the door is connected. Now we will put together the lock as a separate exercise. That's relatively simple, but that's our back door ready to go.